While the United States officially denied investigating UAPs until 2017, some nations had always been ahead in their approach to the subject. Leading the world in UAP research is the South American country of Chile. In 1997, the Chilean government officially instructed air traffic control and military personnel to create the Committee for the Study of Anomalous Aerial Phenomena. The committee studies all reports of UAP activity by commercial, military, and civilian pilots. One of the most well-publicized was a shocking incident that occurred in 2014, when Chilean naval officers flying along the coast of Santiago captured video of a UAP.
There was an incident in 2014 where a military helicopter got video of a strange object. It kind of looked like a rocket with some sort of plume behind it. And they said they were at about 4,500 feet.
They have 9 minutes of fairly clear video that exists on this. The Chilean military studied it for 2 years, and they were not able to identify this at all.
Chile, like many other South American countries, seem to be far more open to the idea that there are objects coming into our airspace.
I think one of the reasons why South American countries are more open-minded about the UFO and the extraterrestrial question is because it is part of their cultural heritage. In fact, Peru and Bolivia, they're treasure troves for the ancient astronaut theory. The whole pre-Inca culture and even the Inca culture spoke of these beings of light that descended from the sky. And so these countries essentially grew up with this intrinsic knowledge of someone up in the sky.
Brazil has had a history of really dramatic UFO encounters. Chile, I think Uruguay, maybe as well. But the whole world didn't pay much attention to it.
In addition to South America, now other parts of the world are also starting to disclose information about UFOs. Governments are openly investigating encounters reported by both civilians and military personnel. But many researchers believe the most noteworthy country to join this international effort is also one of the most skeptical: Japan. In 2018, the Japanese government released an official statement denying the existence of UFOs.
For the longest time in Japan, those in charge, those at the top of the defense departments, have denied UFOs, showed a disinterest in UFOs, basically a complete dismissal of the UFO topic completely.
The Japanese government made a sudden press release that said they would not recognize any UFO encounters or extraterrestrial presence on Earth or in the airspace of Japan. I thought this was very strange, as we had already interviewed 2 pilots who had several incidents and testimonies that they gave us regarding various pilots' encounters in the air and from the ground over the years when they were active in the military.
Mamoru Sato, a former wing commander in the Japanese Self-Defense Force, said that he regularly heard stories from other pilots as well as civilians about UAP sightings.
Some people said, there's something strange out there. There were a lot of opportunities to see inexplicable things, such as UFOs, that were monitoring the sky and training in the sky. And it was my subjective view that we should make a report and organize these things as correct data. But even when this happened, it was only shared among colleagues and not reported publicly.
According to Sato, numerous pilots have reported highly unusual encounters with what they described as cigar-shaped objects. During one such incident, a student in his fighter pilot course even lost control of his craft.
He said, the aircraft started going crazy. The alarm rang to indicate that something was wrong with the machine. I saw a cigar-shaped object flying about 1,500 meters high from east to west. The anomaly continued until it disappeared.
For years, Pilots in the Japanese military were instructed to remain silent about such incidents. But in September 2020, Japan's decades-long policy of secrecy and denial came to an end when Defense Minister Taro Kono tasked the Japanese Self-Defense Forces to make a visual recording of any encounter with an unexplained craft. Many believe this very public shift in policy was prompted by a meeting held 1 month earlier between Minister Kono and his U.S. counterpart, Defense Secretary Mark Esper.
The Japanese, after this meeting, gave a press conference, and they said one of the topics that came up was unidentified aerial phenomena, and we talked about the need to cooperate on this.
That's a major development, I think, when you have close allies like the U.S. and Japan openly speaking about the UFO issue and agreeing to cooperate. We've come so far in such a short amount of time.
The fact that Japan denied that there was UFO activity happening in their country, and now they're establishing the Japanese Space Operations Squadron, says to me that there clearly is something going on over the skies of Japan.
Ancient astronaut theorists suggest governments throughout the world are finally beginning to acknowledge that there may be objects in our skies that are not of this Earth. August 1946. Esteemed U.S. naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, one of the first pilots to fly over both the North and South Poles, organizes Operation High Jump, the largest expedition ever to travel to Antarctica. With 13 ships, 23 aircraft, and over 4,700 military personnel.
This was very important, that after the conclusion of World War II, Admiral Byrd was asked if he would mount a large armada and go for 4 months. It was supposed to be that they would go in December, January, February, and March, and there was a list of military goals that they were to achieve. But by the end of February, something happened.
One of the mission's official goals was investigating sites for potential military bases in Antarctica. But during his explorations, Admiral Byrd allegedly came upon something highly unexpected.
This story is said to come from his diaries, not his published account of the trip, but something he held back and then later was suppressed by government authorities that found it frightening.
In his diary, which was discovered by his son after his death, Admiral Byrd tells an extraordinary story.
Admiral Byrd heard there was an entrance to the center of the Earth through the South Pole. And he took planes into the South, under the South Pole. And when he did that, he discovered that as he flew over the pole, suddenly he's looking at things that shouldn't be there. I mean, it was temperate. His squadron flew under the Earth, into the Earth.
It turns into this lush and green area, and he can't even believe his eyes. But that's just the beginning of his extraordinary story. He tells how all of a sudden he starts to see a shimmering rainbow city that's made of crystal. His airplane is taken control of when he suddenly sees these flying disc-shaped objects around him that lead him to the ground. Whereupon he's escorted into a cavernous type of an area where he meets a being he refers to as the Master in his diary. The Master tells him that they're highly disappointed in what humans are doing with nuclear weapons and how they've recently destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they really are concerned about what is going on the surface of the planet. They tell Admiral Byrd that they hope that humanity will ultimately stop this.
For UFO researchers, this account from Admiral Byrd's diary is particularly significant due to the fact that the modern UFO era began right after World War II and the detonation of the first atomic bombs. It has also been noted that a high number of UFO sightings have been reported in the vicinity of nuclear missile silos.
Admiral Byrd's story is congruent with the stories that we hear from numerous accounts of angelic or extraterrestrial type beings that are very concerned about what humanity is doing with nuclear weapons. Just ask the Air Force officers at the U.S. missile silos, the nuclear missile silos, that have seen their silos and their nuclear arms disarmed by what are perceived to be extraterrestrial beings. They're very concerned that we are ultimately not just going to destroy ourselves, but could harm our planet, which is their world as well.
If Admiral Byrd's secret diary is authentic, does it reveal not only that there are highly advanced beings living inside the Earth, but also that they are monitoring what happens on the surface? According to the diary, after this incredible encounter, Admiral Byrd was eager to share his story, but was ordered to remain silent.
Byrd comes back after this experience. He is taken to a government compound where he is told that he is never to speak of this publicly and that everything he says is classified.
Could Admiral Byrd's story point to a profound connection between the ancient traditions of strange beings living inside the Earth and the modern-day UFO phenomenon? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and believe we may be fast approaching the time when we will find ourselves face to face with the beings of Inner Earth. Bridgeport, Connecticut, 1953. Albert K. Bender, the nation's top UFO investigator, receives a threatening visit that will bring his research to an abrupt and premature halt.
Albert K. Bender founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau. This was during the big UFO flap of 1952, when flying saucers were witnessed over Washington, D.C. and many other areas around the world. And this organization blew up big within that first year. However, just a year later, he suddenly ended the International Flying Saucer Bureau, and people wondered why. And what happened was that he came home one night, went into his bedroom, and suddenly these three dark, shadowy figures materialized through his wall into his bedroom. They were wearing the hats and the overcoats. They had glowing eyes, and they smelled like sulfur.
According to Bender, the three entities communicated with him through telepathy, warning him to discontinue his UFO research and stop publishing his influential magazine, The Space Review. Afterwards, he became ill and didn't eat for 3 days.
After this experience, Bender was repeatedly visited. He said they gave him headaches, they controlled him telepathically, and he ultimately gave up his UFO researches and stopped publishing the Space Review, in which he documented UFO sightings throughout the world.
He told the people that had been subscribers and he was working with, they told me, we come from a very, very far distant place in this universe. And we have been coming and going from your planet for some time, and we cannot allow you or anyone to interfere. And in fact, we have taken many humans from this planet to cover up our operations until we are done.
This is a very influential point in our history, especially in the ufology community, in which shadow entities interfered and thwarted somebody's research and possibly set the field back a number of years.
The visitors Albert Bender encountered matched descriptions of what is today known as the Hat Man, but he called them by another name, the Men in Black. While the Men in Black are often portrayed in pop culture as government agents, many who claim to have encountered them believe they are something other than human.
The Men in Black are mysterious and nefarious entities. They're shadowy, they wear black clothing. Many people believe that they're either extraterrestrials or somehow they're working for extraterrestrials to prevent humans from learning the truth about extraterrestrials on Earth.
They talk to UFO witnesses. Some people have reported they seem to not know things that are common, like, you know, which end of a pin to use, or if they're offered something to eat or drink, they don't know how to eat or drink it.
Both the Hat Man and the Men in Black are known for wearing a hat. They both influence people telepathically. They both appear to be sometimes malevolent, and they could, in fact, be the same type of a being. There's a theory that the Hat Man and the Men in Black are actually the ringleaders of the Shadow People, and that, in fact, they direct the Shadow People to influence humans in particular to keep them from investigating UFO experiences.
There's no question that the stories of shadow people, men in black, and other visitations are all mixed in together. Are they the same? Possibly. But what I think what is really happening on this planet is mass hysteria of real events that are happening to real people, and they can't understand what's going on. Who knows what's happening?
In Suffolk County, England, there is a remote forest in the village of Rendlesham that has become famous for being the site of one of the most extraordinary UFO encounters ever reported. And some of those who experienced it believe this incident also involved time travel. The event occurred on December 26, 1980. Airman John Burroughs was performing a routine security check at a U.S. Air Force base when he received orders to investigate a possible downed aircraft.
My supervisor called me on the radio and asked me to meet up with him so we could check the east gate. We're driving down the road leading to the east gate to check on it when all of a sudden he saw some strange lights in the forest. So I decided to call it in and let him know something strange was going on. They decided to send one of the security units down, which was Sergeant Peniston. He got down there and he saw the same strange lights that we were seeing.
I could see all these multiple color lights and things like that. And the air felt different. I don't know how to really explain that, but it did feel like there was electricity on our skin and hair and stuff. But that progressively got worse the closer we got to the tree line, and it got more intense.
There seemed to be like an electricity-charged atmosphere. And then also there were points where it seemed like everything was going in slow motion.
As the servicemen approached the strange lights, Sergeant Peniston reportedly saw a large craft just beyond the tree line.
The craft was triangular in shape, measuring about 6 to 7 feet high, black in color. I had come around to the far side of the craft, and that's when I noticed that there was, you know, inscription on the side. You know, it is about 3 feet long, maybe 6 inches high. So I'm expecting to find, I don't know, some kind of prototype stuff, USAF. I'm looking for something very familiar. Instead of something familiar, I see these pictorial type glyphs and got running my hand over the side of the craft. I don't know how to explain this. It's like someone was holding a picture up, okay? I could see it in my mind's eye. Zeros and ones. So I recorded those, one after another.
When Peniston touched the craft, he then said that he felt a strange download of information to his mind, and he felt compelled the next day to write down a series of zeros and ones, which we now regard as binary code.
Years later, a computer programmer took this information, ran it through a translation program, and a message emerged. The message read, "Exploration of humanity, continuous for planetary advance, eyes of your eyes, origin year 8100. When one sees origin year 8100, one is forced to speculate, might we be looking not just at extraterrestrials, but time travelers from the future?
After the incident, the U.S. military conducted a brief investigation, but allegedly tried to keep the eyewitnesses away from the press. But for Airman Burroughs and Officer Peniston, the event wasn't easy to leave behind. Both men had lasting physical effects from the encounter and even reported strange dreams.
After the incident, I started having throat and eye problems. At one point, my gums turned white. I also had vision problems, and when I went and saw the doctor, one of his first questions was, had I been ever exposed to radiation? I've definitely had dreams about it, and I still have feelings about what happened and what could happen in the future.
I got out of service in 1993. Then I was out about maybe 3 months, and then I started getting these dreams and nightmares. During the dreams, I could see that these were time travelers 40 to 50,000 years in the future. I see that the purpose to come back was to correct things, was to fix things. Something horrible has happened. Something I have to correct. But it requires time travel. It requires going back into the past. I've never had a feeling of it being extraterrestrial. It's always been that they were simply us in the future.
Could it be that the craft reportedly witnessed by James Penniston and John Burroughs came not from a distant star, but from a distant point in time? Central New Mexico, October 19th, 2019. Investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe has invited ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos to join her on a trip to a spot in the desert just outside Roswell, very near what is known as the skip site. According to eyewitnesses, one of the 3 UFOs seen in the sky in July 1947 first crashed to Earth near this location, then was propelled back into the air, skipping like a stone in a pond before finally coming to rest. Linda was contacted by geologist Frank Kimbler, who wants to show her mysterious metal fragments that he found here and search the area for more.
Linda, this is so exciting. I have not been here in a couple of years, so I'm really looking forward to meeting Frank.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we've got a geologist who's helping, because the geologist looks at land and says if there is debris, there's going to be some kind of a drift with the land. And just from what I know, he has studied some areas meticulously.
Right.
Giorgio and Linda arrive at the skip site and meet Frank Kimbler, a local geologist and professor of earth science.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Good
How
to
are
see
you?
you. All right.
Frank,
Linda,
finally. Yes. You and I have been chasing these artifacts.
Chasing the metals. Looking for parts.
Yes.
Professor Kimbler has spent nearly a decade searching areas beneath the purported trajectory of the Roswell craft with infrared technology and metal detectors.
When an object crashes, they're going to scatter a variety of materials around. Knobs, control devices, plastic, wires, whatever. If it's coming apart, it's going to leave those pieces behind. And those are the kinds of pieces that I want to find and have found some of.
Since 2011, Professor Kimbler has uncovered more than a dozen metal fragments that he has subjected to scientific testing and found to be highly unique.
That's what we want to go out there and see where you've been getting this.
Frank.
Yeah.
What's inside the case?
Oh, this is the magic right here. This is some of the material that I have found out here using a metal detector.
Interesting.
This stuff is very interesting. It's all twisted and mangled up. Something that you would expect to happen from a crash is to have metal that's compact and twisted.
When Professor Kimbler laid out his box of his pieces of metal, the first thing that struck me is these were tiny, tiny, tiny fragments. Could they possibly be from wreckage?
These pieces are small, which is things that the government would have missed. They wouldn't have been able to find it.
And here's my magic. Let's get a comparison here.
Oh,
look
at that. Look at that.
Look at It's like a snowfield. After all these years, all of the pieces They look absolutely pristine. That's the magnesium zinc side.
This has got layers to it. That's amazing.
But I bet you've never seen anything like
No.
this.
Being an earth scientist, being a geologist, I've seen lots of all kinds of materials that are out there. I have never, ever seen anything like this. This fragment that Linda is showing me, that stuff is absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. And what's interesting about it is that it has some layers, some banding on it. And that banding is very similar to some of the banding that I found in photomicrographs of the material that I have from out here.
I think as Giorgio is holding this, he's holding something made by another intelligence from someplace we don't understand, and this is truly extraterrestrial.
Is it possible that Giorgio is holding an actual fragment of an extraterrestrial craft? And if so, could even more incredible artifacts still remain in the desert outside Roswell?
We need to get going, and we need to get out there so you guys can experience finding some of this stuff, which is amazing.
All right, let's go explore.
So where do you think's best here now?
We're in the perfect spot, and we're gonna cover this whole thing right here.
Uncovering bits of debris in this vast desert is a daunting task. But after nearly a decade spent combing the entire area, Professor Kimbler has pinpointed certain hotspots. Some of the artifacts he brought with him today were discovered in this very location just within the past month.
So just above the area of the ground, we're gonna sweep back and forth like this. And we're gonna cover this side to side, back and forth, little by little. I've been out here 6 or 7 or 8 hours at a whack swinging this thing till my arms break off. We can cut across this way.
You're waiting for that beep.
We're looking off in this general direction out here. The craft basically either had some kind of mechanical failure or something blew up.
Professor Kimbler scans the area along the gouge, meticulously covering every inch. After nearly 2 hours, he has not detected any metal objects.
Giorgio, my arm is about to break off, and I'm kind of hoping that you just might have a little bit better luck than me doing
Let's
this.
see.
You saw what I was doing. It's already fired up, and I'm going to let you swing this, and we can just walk. There you go. It's working perfect.
Excellent.
Maybe you'll be able to get the magic flowing on this. Well, I think we need to head up right over here because this is right at the base of a hill and there's a bunch of disturbed rocks. Might be a good place to capture material that has run off. Also,
within just a few minutes of taking over the metal detecting, Giorgio gets a hit.
I heard something.
Yeah.
There is something.
Oh my God. There is something there and we need to dig it up. Let me help you find it.
Okay. It's right here somewhere.
We'll find it. We will find it. You're on top of it. You're right there.
Right there.
See if it's there. It's in my hand.
Wow.
Now comes the hard part. It's a piece of wire.
All right, okay.
A tiny little piece of wire. We're gonna keep it. We're gonna take it and have it analyzed because maybe it's got something in it that's weird.
Let's still investigate this.
We need to take it and have it tested.
Giorgio hands off the metal detector to Linda, who continues along the gouge. Just a few feet from where Giorgio detected a piece of wire, they get another hit.
All right. Pick up your bracelet too. I tell you what, let's dump it into this hand, right here. Here we go. It's another piece of wire.
This is strange looking though. Why is it so twisted and mangled?
I have no idea.
You said that if there was debris, this would be one of the places because of the geographic terrain right here.
It's run off, and this is what I've used time and time again to find stuff.
As far as Giorgio and Linda are concerned, any metal objects found in the so-called gouge area are worth examining. Is it possible that these bits of wire represent debris from the 1947 crash that was overlooked by the military? Quang Binh Province, Vietnam, 1991. Langer Ho Khan discovers a mysterious entrance to a hidden mountain cave obscured by dense jungle overgrowth. The cliffs leading down to the entrance are so steep he cannot explore it further, but he notes its location. Nearly 2 decades later, the British Cave Research Association finally explores the cave. What the team discovers is astounding. It is the largest underground chamber on the planet.
It's not just a cave. It's an actual world in Vietnam. Inside this cave, it's 40 stories high. There's actually an ancient forest. It's got flowing water, not just a puddle or a stream, but an actual river. Inside the cave is an entire growing ecosystem. And it's so deep that it looks like it's an entrance to a whole other reality.
This incredible subterranean realm, called the Songdong Cave, is estimated to be roughly 3 million years old. It runs through the earth for nearly 6 miles, and numerous areas where the cave ceiling has collapsed allow sunlight to enter, resulting in the growth of trees and other vegetation. But according to area residents, what's most notable about Songdong Cave are the strange creatures that are believed to dwell within it.
Local residents describe seeing reptilian-type humanoid beings emerging from the Songdong Cave, and they believe that they actually lived deep inside this cave. What's fascinating about this is that these reptilian-type humanoid beings are similar to the seraphim or the winged serpents in Kabbalistic tradition. The seraphim are said to have gone and lived in the inner earth, according to Kabbalistic teaching.
Is it possible that reports of reptilians at Songdong Cave are encounters with beings from inner Earth? While it may sound too incredible to be true, there have been reports that during the Vietnam War in the 1970s, U.S. soldiers encountered what they described as upright lizards inhabiting caves. And accounts of reptilian beings existing in underground caverns can be found all across the globe, even on the other side of the world, in Cusco, Peru.
Throughout Peru and around Cusco particularly, there are many, many stories of a tunnel system that has something to do with serpent deities, which they call the Amaru there. The Peruvian authorities themselves decided it was too dangerous for people to go into these tunnels, so they looked for all of the entrances they could around Cusco, and they sealed them up. And this is a well-known story within Peruvian history.
While there have been many reports from around the world of human-like reptilians, there is another inner Earth entity described in the Zohar that is even more commonly witnessed in modern times.
According to Zoharic literature, there are beings inside the earth having large black eyes and a nose that leaves only 2 dark holes on the face. Now that corresponds to things that we've heard about these, for lack of a better word, ETs. There is a lot of evidence that these beings that we think are coming from another planet are not coming from another planet. They're coming from inside our own Earth.
The black-eyed entities, commonly referred to as greys by ufologists, are the beings most often reported by alleged alien abductees, many of whom claim to have been taken aboard saucer-shaped craft. Could it be that the so-called flying saucers, so often reported in modern times, are not coming from outer space, but inner Earth? According to some ancient astronaut theorists, this notion is supported by numerous accounts of UFOs that are seen disappearing into the landscape, and sometimes even flying directly into mountains. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, roughly 2,500 miles northeast of Australia, lie the ruins of a once great ancient city, Nan Madol, consisting of hundreds of man-made islets off the eastern coast of Micronesia. It has been dubbed the eighth wonder of the world.
The site of Nan Madol on the island of Pohnpei in Micronesia is one of the strangest places on the planet. It's an 11 square mile complex composed of over 250 million tons of basalt logs that are floating on a submerged coral reef. They're 18 feet long, 4 feet in diameter, and are stacked 40 feet up in the air. Why did they do this, and how did they do this?
Today, the site lies abandoned and shunned by the local Micronesians, who consider it haunted.
Nan Madol is one of these disappeared civilizations. It's fascinatingly interesting. This seems to have been the center of power of a major civilization, and yet it also seems that it might have been built on earlier civilizations that are lost in time.
Since stone is difficult to accurately date, no one knows for certain when it was constructed or how it was built.
When you ask the local population, where were these blocks quarried? In unison, they will tell you from across the island, and they were flown across the island.
According to legend, twin sorcerers of giant proportions came down from the sky and floated above the site and positioned the basalt columns as they desired. A legend that's very similar to the same story at Pumapunku.
When I hear stories like that, I wonder, well, perhaps we have another example of what I refer to as misunderstood technology.
As with other sites like Pumapunku, Baalbek, and the Coricancha, legend says that these structures were not the first to exist here, but instead were built above a much older city.
The mystery of Nan Madol is even more intriguing when we factor in the local legend that states that it was built on an earlier civilization called the Kanamweso, which is submerged below water, but still has those same basalt megaliths.
Objects that appear to be basalt columns have in fact been found beneath the ocean at Nan Madol. And those who have studied the columns, both above and below the water, have discovered a curious electromagnetic anomaly.
There's a strong magnetic field in every single one of the 250 million tons of basalt there. You can take a compass and run it along these basalt blocks, and your compass will just spin as you move it along the blocks. Also, it's thought that the site itself is a special power spot and an energy vortex. And that's why Nan Madol is built there. And this legendary sunken city called Kanamweso as well.
The local population also reports many sightings of orbs and lights that have been seen hovering around Nan Madol. Is it because of the magnetic spectrum of Earth? And you have to wonder if through magnetism the stones were transported in the first place, because they were transported through the air.
Some ancient astronaut theorists suggest that elevated electromagnetic energy present at Nan Madol was not only a powerful tool used to move the giant basalt columns, but that it may also have been the reason that extraterrestrials helped the locals to build here in the first place.
Could it be that there was a sacred kind of part of the site there where they were connecting with the gods? You know, not just through visionary experiences, but actually something in the land, like a magnetic hotspot or a vortex.
We hear the word vortex in science fiction, popular culture, all the time, and a vortex is just a mathematical thing that describes a swirling motion. An electromagnetic field can be formed in a vortex. You could create a vortex that would enable transporting information from somewhere else to here at the speed of light or faster than the speed of light. And if there are places on the Earth where these types of vortexes may be stronger than others, you could see people going there to build structures that maybe altered the electromagnetic field of the local environment.
Was there even some kind of portal or vortex present in some of these sacred places? If that's the case, we have to question these principles of oracle sites, megalithic temples. Were they built to harness this, to be these communication portals between these different places?
There is no question in my mind that these are much older sites than we think, and that they were spots for extraterrestrial communication a long, long time ago.
The Roswell incident remains the most well-known UFO event in history. But there have been reports of numerous other UFO crashes all over the world, as well as the recovery of strange metal debris. In 1991, geologists searching for gold deposits in Russia's Ural Mountains made a highly unexpected discovery. At depths of over 30 feet, they found a scattering of tiny metal coils and springs.
Russian scientists are finding these tiny nanoparticles. They found thousands of these things. They have to look at them through microscopes. Some of them are just 1/10,000th of an inch, in size. They're all kinds of spirals and tiny machined bits. When they look at it, they seem to be exactly like the kind of tiny nanoparticles and machine bits that we are creating today.
What you see under the electron microscope is mind-boggling because you see spirals, you see definitely something where the scientists who investigated this came to the conclusion that these items are artificially made out of tungsten and molybdenum. And so that right there is incredibly interesting because that was found exactly at the skip site.
Molybdenum is the same material detected in the metal fragments that Frank Kimbler found in the desert outside Roswell. It is a super strong element commonly used in NASA spacecraft.
These microscopic spirals were made of wolfram and molybdenum. The melting temperature for wolfram is above 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and for molybdenum is about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Some version of NASA from some other star system could send a probe here to Earth, and it could fail and crash into Earth, and we would look at it and think, wow, where did this come from? Maybe one day we might be creating our own Roswell when we send our first probe to the nearest star.
Ancient astronaut theorists point out that dozens of visitors to the Ural Mountains have reported encounters with strange cigar-shaped craft trailing fire across the sky. Could this be the Russian Roswell?
Indeed, people living in the Ural Mountains maybe more often than people living in other parts of Russia witness some strange phenomena in the air and on the ground.
Ural Mountains are a very interesting space in the paranormal history of Russia. And I've studied a lot because there have always been incredible UFO sightings in the Ural Mountains. There are stories of civilizations that have disappeared or went under the ground, the so-called dwarf people in the Ural Mountains.
If the nanoparticles discovered in the Ural Mountains are debris from a crashed alien craft, they bring up another intriguing possibility. Because based on how deep below the Earth they were found, they could have been deposited there thousands of years ago.
They're thinking that these things must be over 50,000 years old. So is this also a debris field from a crashed extraterrestrial craft in the Ural Mountains? There could be crash sites all over the world that are hundreds of thousands of years old, right up to modern times.
Rumors abound that there are facilities located all over the world holding the remnants of crashed extraterrestrial craft, like in the remote hills of China, at Pine Gap in Australia, and Rudlow Manor in England.
Who who knows if over the chronology of the history of planet Earth, there were more craft, just like at Roswell, that crashed.
Is it possible that Roswell is just one of many locations on planet Earth where debris from crashed extraterrestrial craft can be found? In May 2019, former British intelligence officer Nick Pope visited the ESETI Ranch in the Pacific Northwest. ESETI is home to the Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence Organization. UFO hunters consider it a major hotspot for unexplained aerial phenomena. Over the past 33 years, scientists from Boeing, NASA, and Lockheed Skunk Works have come to ESETI to research the activity in the sky. But what sets ESETI apart from other UFO watch organizations is that their most powerful observational tool is not a telescope, it's remote viewers.
Remote viewing is essentially taking people who have or believe they have the ability to see things not with their eyes but with their mind and putting them to work gathering intelligence. My first exposure to remote viewing came when I ran the UK government's UFO program. We looked at UFOs, crop circles, alien abductions, anything mysterious and unexplained, I did it. Remote viewing might be tapping into unknown dimensions. I know this sounds like science fiction, but actually it isn't. Some of the work being done at places like the Large Hadron Collider are now quite seriously looking at the concept of other dimensions.
At ESETI, ex-government remote viewing expert John Vivanco
Hi there.
and UFO skywatcher Peter Slattery lead a team of remote viewers. Today, they are working on an experiment that will combine human observation and remote viewing in an attempt to better understand what has become a recent increase in UFO sightings over Washington State's Mount Adams.
So let me know, please, what are your respective backgrounds with this?
I am a remote viewer. I've been doing this professionally for 20 years, over 20 years now, and I run a team of remote viewers and we work operational type projects for clients. And we look at different types of phenomena that can't be explained through conventional means.
I'm known as an experiencer / contactee, but also I hold Skywatch events. So we're going to do a Skywatch and just see what happens.
Where are we going to do that?
Just going to go out to the Skywatch field here, so let's go and check it out.
Okay, great.
As Nick joins Peter to conduct field surveillance, John has stationed 2 remote viewers in a windowless room, armed with nothing more than a pencil and a drawing pad.
The way it works is that a remote viewer is given a random 8-digit number connected to what they're supposed to remote view. Now, they don't get what they're supposed to remote view, only the number. That's it. They're going to be at the location of whatever it is through the mind describing exactly what that is.
So what are these remote viewers actually going to be doing in there?
It's not so much viewing. We get visual snippets and a lot of body sensations. Basically, they're going to be drawing and writing a lot on paper.
And afterwards, once we've got the data, how are we actually going to analyze it?
So I will collect that information from them when they're done, and then in the morning we can meet up, see if we can come up with some explanation for what went on.
Well, great. That sounds good. I hope that we're going to have some interesting and meaningful results.
After discussing the details of the evening's plans, Peter and Nick part ways with John and join the rest of the Skywatch team in the field.
Pete, I see the team has grown somewhat.
We've got Adam here with us. He's going to be helping out the satellite tracker and monitoring the gear. Just very important to be very quick off the mark, knowing what's what. Sometimes we could have 2 things in the sky at the same time, and one of them could be a satellite, the other not. People can mix it up. So when we're focused on the sky, it's great that somebody's focused on the satellite tracker.
Great. So we're essentially making sure we don't miss anything.
Oh, definitely, yeah. We don't want to muddle things up.
The team gets to work setting up the watch station before the sun goes down for the evening. They will be using various technology, including infrared cameras, in order to capture any anomalies in the sky. The location for their watch overlooks Mount Adams, the largest active volcano in Washington state, and a hotspot for UFO sightings. As night sets in, the team has all eyes glued to the sky and on the lookout for any objects that might cross their path. Utilizing real-time satellite tracking data, they can anticipate the arrival of all man-made traffic passing over their airspace.
Hey, is that a satellite? Yep.
Including the International Space Station, or ISS.
Adam, how are we on the timing with the ISS?
1 more minute.
And which direction? West?
It's going to be coming from the west, moving to the east.
Look how bright this thing is.
Whoa! Oh, there it is there. See? That's the space station. Can you see that? That is the ISS, yep.
Okay.
While the field team watches the sky, the remote viewers are sketching visual representations of whatever comes to them. Incredibly, as the International Space Station passes overhead, both women begin to draw virtually identical rectangular objects.
Well, it's not a UFO, but it's still a pretty spectacular thing.
Yeah, it's pretty epic to see.
After spotting a few other satellites in the sky, Nick and Peter notice a mysterious, fast-moving object, one that does not appear to be a satellite.
One right there, right now. Look how quick it is. Is that a satellite? I've got it on camera. Where are you at? East, southeast. I see nothing on the tracker. Can you see it up here, guys?
Okay, I definitely saw it up in that section of the sky with my naked eye. It just caught my attention out of the corner of my eye. I turned around, saw it for a few seconds, and then it faded.
That's exactly what I saw.
And there was nothing on the monitor at all?
Nope, nothing at all. That section of the sky was clear.
And that's satellites. What about aircraft and flight paths?
Nope, everything was clear.
Okay. Well, it was something.
Did Nick Pope and the ESETI team spot an extraterrestrial object in the night sky? One that inexplicably disappeared. Whistler, Canada, April 17th, 2019. Ancient astronaut theorist Georgios Tsoukalos and retired NASA scientist Dr. Richard Hoover are about to board a helicopter bound for a massive ice cave in the Canadian wilderness.
All right, you ready for this?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Dr. Hoover spent most of his career studying fossils for signs of extraterrestrial microscopic life and is a leading proponent of panspermia, the idea that life on Earth originally rained down from comets in outer space. He has invited Giorgio to accompany him while he investigates the Whistler Ice Cave.
I always love this.
Where he is confident that they will find the glacial ice teeming with microbial and perhaps even more sophisticated life forms. Life forms that may be thousands of years old.
Oh, this is just absolutely magnificent. It really is.
If alien microbes are reaching Earth, Dr. Hoover suggests that they could survive within such an environment for long periods of time. Today, he'll examine the glacier for the perfect samples to analyze in his laboratory.
So, Richard, how excited are you to be here to conduct this experiment?
Well, I'm tremendously excited. This is absolutely a marvelous opportunity to do more studies of life in ice.
After a 20-minute helicopter ride, the team arrives at the Whistler Ice Cave in the Pemberton Glacier.
Wow. This is incredible.
Yeah, amazing. Look at that. There must be 1,000 shades of blue in this ice cave. It's absolutely fantastic. And here we see all of these magnificent shades of blue, and up there you see big streaks of black. Glaciers like to eat rocks, and as they eat rocks, the rocks gather inside, and when the sun shines through the ice and hits the rocks, it can cause it to melt and form nice little pools of water, and then when bacteria and algae
grow in there and respire and produce their photosynthetic products. They make their own atmosphere. So around every tiny rock in this glacier, there is a tiny planetary system with its own biology, its own atmosphere, its own soil, in effect, and its own oceans.
The ice here is tens of thousands of years old, but Dr. Hoover believes it is teeming with life.
Wow, I mean, this is spectacular. So you just described basically our environment on a microscopic level.
Exactly. There's an enormous amount of biology above us and throughout this wonderful glacier. What we're about to do is take a core sample of this beautiful blue ice.
So what are you looking for specifically right now?
What I want to do first is chop away an outer layer and get into the inner ice. And we'll be looking inside of the ice for the ice microorganisms. Now we know there can't possibly be any contamination because this ice has been in the glacier and now is only freshly exposed. And now we take the core. Now we're into the ice. I'll pull the ice core out. Okay.
And that's enough, right?
That's enough, yeah, for that first sample. Yeah, cap that.
Okay.
All the microorganisms that grow in ice typically grow very, very slowly. So, in fact, there are some microorganisms that only reproduce once every half a century or once a century.
So the microbes that are found in here, are they in suspend animation or are they moving around?
Probably both.
So essentially what you're saying is that this entire cave is filled with life.
Yes, but not just that. This entire ice cap is filled with life. There is this enormous amount of microorganisms that live and thrive and love to live in these low temperatures of the ice cave that we have here, and ice caves and icy glaciers all over the planet Earth, and probably all over icy regions within our entire solar system, and maybe widely distributed throughout the entire universe.